What's up, beloved? Welcome to my diary. I'm Tatami, and today I wanted to talk about Carol Baskin and the Tiger King. Get it off my chest finally. It's been like 2 years since that documentary came out, and I've had just pretty much these same thoughts this entire time, but I didn't really know how I wanted to word them, and I wasn't sure if it was like kind of too late or a little kind of random to talk about, which is funny because this is my diary. I can talk about whatever I want to. However, I just kind of felt like I just didn't know if I wanted to keep thinking about it. But then they made a sequel, right? They made the sequel to the Tiger King. So I was like, alrighty then. I guess it's a sign. I'm going to talk about it. And kind of what I want to talk about and refer to, I'm not sure if you actually saw this, but I saw this all over YouTube. I did see it on Facebook. I saw it on Instagram. I saw it all over social media. Basically, people were super hyper fixated on Carol Baskin, on their conspiracy theories about her. Songs were being made, people were referring to her in their songs, memes were being made, content was just being made about this. And it was actually all of that that made me watch the documentary, because originally I was just kind of like, I vaguely know what was going on, having been on YouTube. So I wasn't originally going to watch it until I saw everybody hyper focusing on Carol Baskin. So I went ahead and watched it, and my conclusion was, did we all watch the same video, the same documentary, or is everybody just joking? Because a lot of people didn't really seem like they were joking. Some people seemed like they were joking, but a lot of people did not seem like they were joking. I'm like, did we all just watch this man commit a bunch of crimes and do a bunch of unethical and immoral things? And it's all verifiable. It was all verifiable. But then somehow everybody walked away with like a conspiracy theory about the woman who's against a lot of the things he stood for. Like, we watched this man groom a bunch of like teen boys, like just barely turned into adults, teen boys, into age gap relationships that involved heavy drug usage, to the point where one of them died, like OD'd, off of these hardcore narcotics that he'd gotten them hooked onto. Very depressed, you know what I mean? We have video evidence of this person. We have picture evidence that this person existed. He was open about this person existing. He was open about the other people he'd been dating that were also incredibly young and somehow also kind of addicted to drugs. We had evidence that he was breeding cats just for people to pet and like take pictures with while they were babies, while they were cubs. But then they would kind of get older, and it wasn't like they were being trained. It wasn't like when you see people with, like, I don't know, what, ocelots or whatever it is, that people, you know how people will like adopt a fox or something, but it's the only fox in their house, so they're trying to work with it, and so they can kind of mitigate some of the wild animalness, and hopefully it doesn't all just come out and hurt them in the end. um but he wasn't like spending time with these cats, so they just started acting like cats, especially the older they got, and they had needs and they had hormones and all of those things, and they were expensive to feed. And so he would just shoot them in the head and bury them, and that verifiably happened. They found the skulls. Like, he got in trouble for doing that legally. And so there we go again. He also had like a staff member who lost a limb. I forget which limb he lost, but I mean, that person didn't have that limb anymore, and it came from the situation, the dangerous situation of which they work. So that also happened. And then also he doesn't pay the people at the place, that his employees very well, and part of how he pays them is in like slightly rotting meat that they all just dig out, and like then they feed some of it to the tigers. I'm trying to remember this correctly. It's been a couple years. Should have made this video back when I watched it. At any rate, so we watched him commit crime after crime after crime, immoral thing after immoral thing after immoral thing, something that, most people wouldn't approve of, multiple times. Oh, and also there's the fact that the cats are all like locked into these pretty small cages. There isn't like a wide open space that any of them go to at any point. He also was stalking Carol Baskin and like harassing her. That's all verifiable. He was fixated on her. He was obsessed with her. And yes, he tried to get her killed. That happened, and there's evidence of all of this stuff. These are all verifiable crimes. But for some reason, everybody was so hyper fixated on the a conspiracy theory of her missing husband, because one, her his will changed like a few months or something before he went missing, and it left her as the benefactress, or like the person who got everything, the inheritor of everything. And also, yeah, he died. So everybody was like, she fed him to the crocs, she fed him to the tigers, what have you. I looked into it, and I did notice that her husband, who had gone missing, was 3 times like older than her. And so, and she was also one of those like very young people, pretty much like a teen coming into adulthood, that had been seduced by this person. I was like, oh wow, this tiger world has, it's got some repeats here. But I know that nobody I've noticed has really ever talked about that it was an age gap relationship, and she was incredibly young when she got into it. And yeah, it was likely just as abusive as the one I'm seeing here. It's really hard not to see it as abusive when you have such clear power dynamics between two people. One person has all the money, one person has all the experience, one person has all of everything, and then the other person is just being introduced into all this and doesn't have much to fall back on. So there's really a lot of issues I have with age gap relationships, and like the types of people, usually men, but yes, sometimes women, who try to indulge in them and get themselves in on it and get young people caught up in them, especially when people are under 30. I have a really huge issue of it. But also people in their 20s who go after teens, the whole shebang. So she has this issue with this relationship. I did notice that. I would have automatically thought less of him. I automatically thought less of him when I saw this. But let's just be real. There's no actual evidence that she did anything specifically to this man, or that she stole all his crap. And even, and let's say she did do it, there's still no evidence. So it's like we see this one guy with all this evidence of something that he did wrong, and then we see this person where there's like, maybe, and everybody hooked on to the maybe. Everybody latched on to the maybe and was like, how dare she? What is going on here? Did she steal this man's, like, tiger kingdom? And then I also noticed people started making stuff up. Like, people were saying, oh, what's the difference between what she does and what he does? He has tigers in cages, she has tigers in cages. When it's clearly explained that she has a tiger sanctuary where tigers have way more space, they get to roam around, they are not killed when they get too old or start acting like tigers. They are not bred just so people can come in and hold them. You can't come in and hold them. You can't pay her any amount of money to go into her sanctuary and hold these tigers. You know what I'm saying? So it's just really bizarre to me. It's always been really bizarre to me that she's the one who everybody was so angry at and wanted to like talk about. And meanwhile, and then yeah, and then of course he gets a sequel, so he's getting paid for that as well. And for some reason he thought Trump was going to give him a, what's it called, what's that word, I can't even, I'm like brain farting right now what the word is, but you know what I'm saying, trying to get him out of jail. He wanted to damn, it was so close. It's like it got here in my brain and then it just disappeared again. But yeah, he thought he was going to get out of jail. Trump was just going to like let him go and dismiss all of his crimes, and he was going to get out, which is just bizarre to me. But at any rate, my whole point is I'm not sure what exactly Carol Baskin did that was so much worse than the Tiger King, especially because nothing that people complained about with her was actually verifiable. Everything that he did was actually verifiable. And what he did was a lot of really bad stuff. Like him killing her or wanting to kill her because she was like his enemy, his arch nemesis, was kind of like the least of the issues. There was so many issues that were really bad before that it's surprising he was getting away with everything for so long. And I'll say this, like all the tiger people in that movie were pretty weird. It was all of them are a little weird, big cat people. it's a certain type of person. I'll say that. And am I a huge fan of Carol Baskin? I don't know this lady. I don't think I even follow her. I don't think I'm subscribed. But my point is I always found that so weird. Did any of you ever see all that hate? Did any of you understand what all that was about? Like why people were so fixated on her maybe when his all of his issues were right there. But for some reason he was given a pass, and people were like frothing at the mouth at the thought of a very young woman who was put into this relationship with a much older man, and then he disappeared. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like we don't know if he would always go camping or if he would always go on trips, or we don't know what his lifestyle was like. It never really went into that. So there are plenty of reasons why that could have, or explanations that could make it a lot less suspicious. But instead, excuse me. Instead, people jumped to a whole bunch of conclusions, were eager for like a true crime type of story when there already was a true crime story. This man helped his like 19-year-old boyfriend OD, his like 20-year-old boyfriend OD. Like if that was my son, I'd be so pissed. Like there would have been so much fighting going on for my child, who this person was just supplying a heavy like amount of drugs to, and then oh surprise, he ODs. Like there already was like a verifiable situation there. So I just don't understand. I've just never understood it. I don't know. There's a huge part of me that feels like there's a misogynistic element to this, holding women to certain standards, getting angry at women while men do the same thing and nobody really cares, acting like women are being a little hysterical when she's trying to call him out on something, but they're like, you're doing the same thing, and you're like, but they aren't doing the same thing. I don't know. I've had like a lot of thoughts about it, but I'm not sure even after all this time if I've completed the thoughts on it. At any rate, thank you so much for listening to me. May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads, and I will see you next time.